Welcome back, my friends. Currently, we're on day 348 of Russia's disastrous invasion of Ukraine, and in this video, we're going to talk about corruption. Ukraine to replace defense minister after corruption scandals. So this is Ukraine's Minister of Defense, Reznikov. I personally really like Reznikov, and he himself was not engaging in corruption, but one of his deputies was. So what exactly happened? And a Reznikov deputy was forced to resign in late January after the ministry was accused of signing food contracts at prices 2 to 3 times higher than the current rates of basic foodstuffs. So the military was saying on paper that food for soldiers was costing 2 to 3 times as much as it actually cost, and someone somewhere was keeping the difference for themselves. This 100% is corruption. Anybody participating in this should be found and then held accountable, prosecuted. So, as an American, I don't want to be talking about Ukraine's internal corruption. In my opinion, this is the responsibility of Ukrainian citizens. And friend of the channel, Denis Davidoff, I know many of you also watch his videos. He has been talking about these corruption scandals in his daily videos. This is how it should be in a democracy. Citizens holding their elected officials and representatives accountable, especially if they're engaging in corruption. So while I don't feel comfortable talking about internal matters, Ukrainian corruption, I can talk to you about United States military, if you want to call it corruption. I served as an officer in the United States Air Force for 6 years, and let me just share a couple stories with you. The first one is of a airman charged with selling $50,000 worth of military equipment on eBay. This story was from 2016, and a security forces airman at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio was stealing very nice equipment like night vision goggles from the base and then selling it on eBay. Someone who bought one of these night vision goggles, they found the serial number, they notified the military, and he was arrested. This is a very stupid form of fraud, waste, abuse. That's what we call it in the military, but you can also call it corruption. On military bases all around the world, occasionally there are service members who steal items from the base and then try to sell them to someone else to make money for themselves. Here's another example from 2021. Air Force civilian stole 1.1 million via a travel charge card, and he used it to buy a piano, a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, and went on very nice vacations. So this DoD civilian was in charge of the paperwork for going on trips, and rather than going on real trips, paperwork was being forged, and instead he was buying nice things for himself. So in the military, this does occasionally happen, where people falsify documents and paperwork in order to enrich themselves. This is incredibly stupid to do. Criminals are very stupid, and eventually they will be caught and prosecuted. And the Department of Defense is just the largest organization in the world, with 2.87 million employees. So every month in the media here in the United States, there's going to be a couple stories of, we call it fraud, waste, and abuse, but you can also call it corruption. If you want to zoom in with me, let me share a couple stories with you of my time serving at Minot Air Force Base. I was stationed here for 4 years. This is located in North Dakota, which is basically the Siberia of the United States. And back in 2018, there was a Minot judge advocate accused of attempting a PCS scam. So this was a Lieutenant Colonel, Derek Prescott. I think I have to say allegedly. I don't know if he was ever convicted. But what this JAG did, this is a military lawyer. When you change bases, the military moves you, and you document all of your household goods on a piece of paper. And when your stuff is delivered, if anything was broken or damaged, you can make a claim and then be reimbursed for this. So what this lieutenant colonel did was state on his paperwork that this dresser was broken, this mirror was broken, all of this stuff is worth about $1,000. Now that's normal, that happens. When the military moves families, things are lost, things are broken, you should be compensated. But what this jag did was 3 years later, when he moved again, he filled out the paperwork for items being lost or damaged and listed the exact same stuff. You have to take pictures with your phone and provide evidence, and he supplied the exact same pictures. This is incredibly stupid. Of course, he was caught. And I want to highlight this story because he's a military lawyer. It was his job to prosecute people in the military for doing exactly this. Criminals are dumb, guys. Next story is from 2018. Minot Air Force Base loses machine gun 2 weeks later after losing grenade launcher ammo. So grenades went missing, and then a machine gun went missing from the base armory. A couple weeks later, you're not going to believe where they found that missing Minot machine gun. An M240 machine gun that was reported missing 5 weeks ago has been found in an airman's off-base residence. So this was a huge story. I think this made national news that items were going missing from the base armory. This is very concerning. And when an incident like this makes national news, someone has to be held accountable, aside from the dumb airman who stole the machine gun. So after loss of grenades and machine gun, the Minot Security Forces group commander was fired from his position. And this is the appropriate thing to do in a democratic nation. Someone at the top has to be held accountable for the bad behavior of their subordinates. We call it a crisis in leadership or a crisis in confidence. How can you respect or follow the orders of that leader when there is disorder in the ranks, chaos and confusion? So Reznikov is going to be resigning, not fired this week. And here is a tweet that he put out this morning. Holding the line, thank you all for your support as well as constructive criticism. We draw conclusions. We continue the reforms, even during the war. We are strengthening the defense and working for victory. Glory to Ukraine. Reznikov is going to be replaced with the intel chief. This is Budanov. And I've seen this guy in a couple interviews. I really like him. You also could argue that there's a generational shift occurring here in Ukraine where it's out with the old, people who came of age during the Soviet era, and then in with the new, a younger generation of leaders for a new democratic Ukraine that will, after this war, join the EU and join NATO. Reznikov is not going away entirely. Reznikov will be appointed Minister for Strategic Industries. So basically he's being shuffled around so that his expertise, knowledge, connections can still be used to help Ukraine win this war. The point I'm trying to make with all this is, do you completely abandon Ukraine? Do you stop supplying military aid and support? Because I can show you a couple examples of fraud, waste, abuse, corruption. I just showed you numerous examples just from the Air Force. So are we going to completely defund the military, stop supporting the troops? Because I can give you definitive examples happening every month of corruption in the United States military. In a democracy, this is the process. Find those people, hold them accountable, but the mission must continue. Ukraine must win this war. But let's go ahead and look at the other side of the coin, and who is Ukraine currently fighting against? And the documented evidence of corruption in the Russian military is astonishing. And nobody is being held accountable in Russia. Gerasimov is still the chief of staff of the military. Now he's in charge of the entire war. Sergei Shoigu is still the minister of defense. When it comes to dictatorships, corruption is the name of the game because that's the price that people are expecting to be paid in order to have loyalty to the dictator. So competence in your job is not what is valued in the military. It's loyalty. Loyalty to Putin, loyalty to Shoigu. A friend of the channel, Perun, has made a couple excellent videos about how corruption destroys military. This video is from 8 months ago. It already has 1.8 million views. I highly recommend it. And I want to emphasize that accusations of corruption in the Ukrainian military is Russian propaganda. It's a form of Russian disinformation to weaken Western resolve to provide aid and weapons to the Ukrainians. I hear it here in the United States in American media. People who don't want to be supporting Ukraine, they make the accusation that the Ukrainian military is entirely corrupt, and you can't be helping them with financial aid or military assistance. It's all being stolen. This is the narrative that the Russian government wants Western media to take. They want these accusations to be highlighted and amplified. But thankfully, it's not really working here in the United States. U.S. support for Ukraine reclaiming territory is stable at 65% 1 year into the war. So 1 year into Russia's war on Ukraine, U.S. support for Kyiv reclaiming its territory is stable at 65%, according to a new Gallup poll. This is only down 1% from the last poll conducted in August, and a stable 31% think the contrary, that the conflict should end as quickly as possible, even if that means Russia keeps the territory it has seized. So this 31% of Americans, screw these people. These are like Tucker Carlson, who either want Russia to win or they want Ukraine to give up territory, give Russia what they want in order for the global financial markets and supply chains to go back to business as normal. And now that we are entering year 2 of this conflict, defense production in NATO countries is really ramping up. The New York Times did a story about this artillery shell factory, I think in Pennsylvania. And let me share a little bit of this clip of these artillery rounds being produced. So it takes time for defense production to ramp up, but once it gets going, the shells are never going to stop. It's not just the United States. There are many NATO countries that are increasing artillery production in order to supply this to the Ukrainians. So at some point this year, Ukraine will have artillery superiority over the Russians. Their shells will be more precise, and they will be firing more of them. It's only a matter of time. Ukrainian personnel have arrived in the UK this weekend to learn how to operate the AS-90. The AS-90 is an armored, self-propelled artillery weapon system that the UK is providing Ukraine. So currently there are thousands of Ukrainian soldiers spread out across the United States, the UK, Germany, Poland, I'm sure some other countries, learning how to operate all of these weapon systems being donated. This is going to have a huge beneficial impact on the battlefield this spring and summer. And when it comes to the UK, I applaud their leadership and their strong language that their government is using. I want to share this clip with you of Tobias Ellwood, head of the British Parliament's Defence Committee, and just look at the strong wording that he uses about this war.
We are now at war in Europe. We need to move to a war footing. We are involved in that. We've mobilized our procurement processes. We're gifting equipment. We need to face Russia directly and rather than leaving Ukraine to do all the work.
So that's striking for someone in the UK government to be saying the UK is now at war in Europe. They're taking it very serious. I think strong statements like this from governments in NATO will help raise the alarm and put more urgency on helping Ukraine as much as possible today. Here's a cool video of a modernization of T-72s occurring at a factory in the Czech Republic. Let me just share a couple seconds of this. So currently there's tireless effort and countless hours being done by maintainers in NATO countries in order to repair and upgrade these Russian vehicles, these Soviet vehicles, in order to get them back on the battlefield for Ukraine. Norway plans to give Ukraine $7 billion over the next 5 years. That's a lot of money for Norway, and their aid, I'm sure, is greatly appreciated. And when it comes to this war, if you're watching this video, you are participating by staying informed, by engaging with this topic on social media. Every little bit helps. Here's a story from the Prime Minister of Estonia of volunteers in Estonia getting together on the weekends just to make candles that they send to Ukrainian defenders on the front lines. Every little bit helps. But the Russian forces are keeping up pressure as we approach the one-year anniversary of this war, and Bakhmut increasingly is becoming isolated. On this channel, we've been talking about this city for 3 or 4 months now, as Russia still cannot take it. But there is the strong possibility that the defenders in this city might have to pull out. The Russians have already cut off any resupply routes from the north, and they're trying to get the last of them in the south. If they can reach the village of Chasiv Yar, the last remaining safe road to get food, water, and ammunition into the city will be cut off. And at that point, I think Ukraine should fall back to better fortified positions that can effectively be resupplied. But Russia cannot maintain this rate of attack. These human wave attacks of soldiers acting like zombies, charging into Ukrainian fortified positions. I've seen the videos on Twitter. They're absolutely horrific, what Russia is forcing their own citizens to do. So Putin is going to have to announce another round of mobilization to replace all of the soldiers he's lost since the last round of mobilization. And according to Ukrainian intelligence, Russia is likely to mobilize about 500,000 soldiers in order to effectively run a spring or summer offensive later this year. This announcement, this mass mobilization could occur any day now. And here's a clip from Gherkin. If you're not familiar with who Gherkin is, he's a former FSB officer that was instrumental, I guess, in the taking of Crimea in 2014. He was sent into the Donbass region, and he's wanted by the international courts for shooting down, I think, the Dutch airliner flight. And Gherkin, when this war broke out, was very much in favor of it. He was very optimistic, putting out propaganda videos. But as we approach the 1-year mark, he kind of just puts out sad videos now. This video is being called an installment in the Sad Gherkin series. Gherkin criticizes openly the Russian military now. He fights with Prigozhin on social media. And he just says that this war is not going well for Russia.
Я считаю, что, к сожалению, разгромить без новой волны мобилизации, причем не только людей, но и тыла, разгромить Украину мы не сможем. А если мы не сможем ее разгромить, то либо вот линия фронта вот так и будет, как сейчас, с локальными операциями по очищению каких-то районов, либо наши могут предпринять от большого ума большое наступление. Ну, я, честно говоря, скептически отношусь к его, потому что оно закончится успешно. И лучше бы его не предпринимать. Вот так. Вот примерно понимая состояние наших войск, я понимаю, что наши войска могут обороняться, могут где-то локально атаковать, но лучше им большое наступление не ходить. Потому что может получиться даже хуже, чем перед деэскалацией прошлого.
So Gherkin is saying that Russia needs to mobilize more, but he's still skeptical that it will help Russia be successful in this war. So let's go ahead and check in with some Russian mobilized men. And this group of Russian soldiers, they're from Tiva, Russia. This is in the middle of nowhere, Siberia. So these are ethnic minorities within the Russian Federation. And let me share a little bit of this clip of them filming a video asking for help, saying that they've been treated terrible so far.
Октябрь заебутос мобилизацияга товарищка с октябрь брейда Новосибирский хорез үйжайышты военная подготовка эттердес чоран біз. Аңа бізді бередовой жегерер кылдыр бөлөткеп өретпейін. Бізге комендантск батальон борслердес үйіш катты полигон киірген. Декабрь заебутос Донецк хорезде денерді. Турар біз самдауыз ішінде бередовойды. Егесінде бізді новыйга камарызлер үжен достуар батальонга деп турган военный билет аттында 110 полк, 95 сезон деп бізік көрін таңбалаған комбатовыз полковник Степанов Евгений Александрович тұрғын. Бұл тұрар жерімізді денерді бізді ұштап астаптар ұлы кергелі кізі дағатып. Балықланған істеріміз әндіге жеде берге қайы да ойыны жасыда қамағыз пендірер болдырыз. Біз тайындан ойттала ойынды біз. Төрттің күні я жербі сылды денер ойыны ұлысы бізді ұлыс келген автоматтарлы бізді жандыр соғыры болып позимания қылдықтық. Бізді дері білмесілер, бізге денерге қамарысылер деп. Қойғы зейбіз ішінде береді ойда денерінің ойынай полиция келгіш. Еттеп соққан тауырға да біздер болысқа.
So these Russian men, you can hear it in the way that he's speaking. He's speaking differently. So these are ethnic minorities in Russia. And they were sent to the front lines in Ukraine without getting any proper training or even equipment. You can tell they're all wearing different jackets and different hats and boots, so they probably had to supply their own materials. And upon arriving in the DPR, they're just being beaten up and tormented by the normal Russian military or DPR forces. They do provide clips at the end of this showing them being abused, so I'll put this in a pinned comment down below if you want to watch the entire thing. But these men, if they want to live, if they want to survive, they've got to surrender to the Ukrainians. Let's now talk about some good news, and this is Miss Ukraine in the Miss Universe pageant. She was able to sell her wings from her costume for to raise 10,000 US dollars, which she then gave to Kind Deeds, which is producing prosthetics for Ukrainian soldiers. Pretty cool. Next thing I want to share with you concerns the organization St. Javelin. I went on their website and I ordered a coffee mug, and this is what it looks like. So you've got a Ukrainian tractor pulling a Russian tank. On their website, they've got lots of cool merch, and St. Javelin was started by a former journalist, Christian Boros, and all profits or proceeds from the sales of merch are being used to support Ukraine. So if you want to go on their website and order some stuff, they've got cool t-shirts and stickers and coffee mugs and the like. I'll put a link to this in a pinned comment down below. Final clip I have for you is of Ukrainian prisoners of war that were recently exchanged, and one of the defenders is going to have a piece of fruit for the first time in almost a year.
Перше зарік свіжі фрукти. Навіть страшно. Смачного. Офігенно. Офігенно.
This Ukrainian prisoner of war, his name is Maxim, and this is what he looked like a year ago before being captured by the Russians, and this is what he looks like today. In the video, I'll once again include it in the pinned comment down below, but he describes what they were eating every day, and it was not a very good diet, not enough calories for an adult man, and he's alive. That's the important thing. That's all for this update video. Glory to the heroes, glory to Ukraine. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments or questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, take care, be safe.